Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back. If you have, my intention is unity and oneness and the highest levels of love light. I wanted to just go into a little explanation of a video that I just recently did. But I also want to just go into some faster flow. So when I'm channeling, oftentimes I am hearing multiple things and I take time to differentiate the different messages that are coming through, and that'll take me into 5 different directions. But I really want to focus this particular message on earth changes because I'm curious, I'm interested in it. I talk a lot about the human. I talk a lot about our bodies and all the senses and using all of the senses, and that's one of the biggest messages that's been coming through. But what I am hearing is also that there's things that are happening inside the earth that are helping us to remember what it is that maybe we've become complacent around. And that can be things such as connecting with the earth, connecting with our body. But some of the words that had come through from my previous video were, if I can find them again, radial distance, radial distancing, radiation. Clearly, we've got advanced radiation coming from the sun. But I also keep getting these messages about it coming up from the earth, as well as crystals that are singing. I've got energy that's coming in from other planets, something about a planet that has yet to be named, or an object in space that has yet to be talked about. So these are just some bits of information I'm just getting in flow about, and I don't really know much about it. So I'm just going to play and share what comes through. And kind of go from there. Okay, so some of the things that I had that had been coming up in my words I used last time, talking about lines and our lines of direction and what it is that we're lining up with and where those lines are headed. And essentially, I'm just seeing this as having something to do with the polar coordinates. So there's something going on with the coordinates of Earth, and this has to do with the polarization of us. So everything is connected. And I feel like kind of talking about this a little bit, but let me just go into flow and see kind of what comes through in regards to electromagnetic fields, electric currents, polar coordinates, radius, all of that, and see if anything that is fun to play with comes through. Whew, okay. So along our axes, along our axis point is a coordination system, a system of coordinates that allows us to fluctuate within this rotation. So there's a geometry in which we follow, a linearization, we might say, of a path that we have chosen to point towards. This chosen point of coordinates that we are choosing to point towards are creating a space within us. And as this laterally raises our definition of definitive points of expansion or dimensions, it allows us to access more of a dimensionless equilibrium. And we are playing with many different words so that we can mix them up a little bit and then reform them in a different order of geometrics. So as we land, as we have this landscape, as we choose to land in this particular scape or reference point, there are certain signatures that we combine with that match us up with a frequency abode, a place to call home, a homing mechanism that allows us to drive forward our ability to drive forward. So that means there's a double meaning here. I'm seeing the future, going forward, moving forward in that direction, directional existence, but more there's more than that. As we drive or create this driving force, this inner mechanism is then also motivated, we could say. It creates a motor, if you will. It allows us to, what's that song? I'm probably getting the lyrics wrong. I always do that. Motoring, do, 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 finding mystery. Anyways, and so I'm visualizing a graph and I'm hearing it creates a kite. All right, I just got to drop into flow. I don't even know if I'm gonna post this. We'll see how this goes. So I'm gonna draw this kite. So this is what I'm being shown. Oops. Disappearing into the trees. Into the forest I go. Okay. There it is. Okay. I've got a little background noise, so I'm trying to focus. This kite is, let us say, upwind and is floating in a particular line or consistency of frequency, we might call it, that allows it to interface and interlock in a particular geometry of reality. And so if you visualize the earth as a growing energy herself, we begin to recognize that there is no set pattern necessarily that she must always follow. For in growth, there turns out to be a change of turns, a change. I'm hearing a turn on a dime. We do not share this to create fear for those of you who are aware of the polar activity and how the poles have shifted. It is creating this idea of catastrophe. And we would venture to share, what does the word catastrophe really mean? Just as earlier we were using words such as radiation, line, radial line, and determination of points in places in space on Earth. All we are referring to is a change in the currency, a change in the frequency that influences the magnetics and that which it is that we are magnetically connected to. I'm seeing inside of the earth like magnets, rocks and stones, and also magnetic planets potentially that are part of an asteroid system, as an example. So there is much to be taken into account when we are counting how far it is that we are from some place in space. And there is much to be taken into account about our own accountability, for we are sharing this in two different stories, of course. All right, so what I'm being shown is a big storm. The human story, polarization, separation, this movement and orchestration of our evolution. But I'm also being shown, so let me just kind of play with this. I just went down the rabbit hole here. All these things I've written about, I don't really understand fully, but I can understand bits and pieces of them. And this led me to the dynamo theory. And so maybe we'll go into this a little bit, because I used to always say, Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow, Dinah, won't you blow your horn? That song, and it was code for the dynamo. And I was hearing dynamo. I've written about it quite a few times. So let me just rein it back in. So with humanity, there is a rise in equilibrium, in unequal. So it feels unequal. But in actuality, it is creating an equal distortion in the field. And while oftentimes we use distortion as a negative, we must recognize that it has a polar opposite, which is a positive. And so while there is much that is being excreted into the system that has a negative influence, we could say, on the perpetual dynamics of the interface with reality, we might also add that, I'm hearing 1 + 1 is 2, that this is also in an equal point of view or perspective being balanced out by an entire energetic component that is interlocked with the frequency of spatial dynamics. And this is a play on words, for spatial dynamics covers many different ranges. But right now we're alluding to the human performance. And so the rate of performance, that which is forming, I'm hearing per capita inch or per capita, is actually harnessing a potential of energy that is riding a wave, so to speak, that is rising up, that is changing the direction of the human experience in mass proportions. And this is a positive effect in all. So there's a play on words here. So when we combine this, as all is connected, and we relate this to the human, the earth experience, we are also recognizing that the earth is forming her own conclusion. And this is not a play on words, or this is a play on words that is not to say that she is coming to an end. She is performing her own conclusion. All right, so I'm being called to play with that. So part of this is a play on words because she's coming, it basically, if you look at conclusion as a, let's just bear with me for a minute, if you would. The end or finish of an event or process. So it's not necessarily coming to an end, it's that there's been a process that has been been worked towards. So Earth is coming to the end of this that she's been working towards. And what I'm being shown is so has humanity. So we've been working towards something and now we're coming to a conclusion, which means we're actually being pushed forward into something new, into something else. And so we play with these words, and it would be easier sometimes to look at this in writing because there is an element of hieroglyphics that could be useful to display what it is that we are trying to convey. Yet within this map that Earth is creating, there is an accretion, one might say, an expedition, expediting land. And this is separate from what earlier I was talking about landscapes. This is like a reference to specific land, although we might be able to use it in multiple meanings. Land and that which is underneath it, that which is held inside of her, is growing. And the energy that is held within her is also growing. And so this particular version of Earth has expanded. And as the expansion also comes along with contraction, expansion, contraction, we would invite you to recognize that this is in companionship with the Earth, with the human. So Earth is in companionship with the human growth and expansion as well. So we are assisting one another, if you will, with our vehicles of transportation and transformation. And so the chemical alchemy and the energetic alchemy that is happening is beyond that which many can comprehend, myself included. So let us dust off the boots for a minute and turn it up a notch, if you will. If you can stay on track, we might be able to spell out certain tracks that we are attempting to organize. I'm going to give it a shot. For as we rise up, as we rise above, as we look down on our past tracks, as we see what it is that we are tracking towards, we begin to keep track of new diagonals, new dimensions, new energies that are available to us in this new, I'm hearing equilateral membrane. Oh, this also has to do with our body. For, just gonna want to flow, the equifarian energies that are holding us together are creating a new variance, if you will, of speed. A new racial, R-A-T-I-A-L. Like when you defer something. So let me. A new racial distribution, we could say. And in this difference, there is a merge of alchemical signatures that create a confluence or a signature of acquiescing multiple mediums in which to merge with. So as Earth moves through a particular point in space, it holds inside of that space a slew of energetic components mixed with elements and plasma and liquid lumifications, we might say, that charge the energy and synergy, and therefore the creativity inside of the earth, or creation, one might call it a creation or giving birth to something new. For in this soup, which we refer to as space, we are not referencing how far apart something is from something else. It is more of the actual landscape of space and what is held within it. For we are all held within something. We are not floating around in nothing. There are always ingredients that are encapsulated within the encapsulation that we are held within, that is always breathing, undulating, and moving as a mechanism of growth and expansion, for all is connected to, through, and as expansion. So as the earth traverses through these particular areas, it increases her area. It increases her mechanical abilities, if you will, in adaptability. It increases the, I'm seeing, like the tectonic plates rubbing together and creating like an actual element from it, or like it's a chemical combustion or alchemy. So it moves from one thing into something else. It becomes something else. And as new elements are combined to form new elements, these new elements create pockets of extreme energy confluences where things merge and come together to birth new land, to birth new rocks and stones and crystal metamorphosis, one might say. And so as this is happening at not only a quantum scale, but a micro, you might call it, I'm hearing a microburst, the energies are palpable. They can be felt almost as if a scraping is occurring, almost as if the earth is scraping up against something. And that which is being scraped up against is creating an exfoliation. And that which was held within these patterns or objects, we could call it, that are being rubbing together, are then excreting a particular toxin. Yet this is a play on words as well. It is more of a, I'm seeing dust. And I'm also seeing like spores when they create, when they expel certain energies that are part of the nutrients that enhance the forest floor, for example, and all of the creatures that are part of that ecosystem. And so the earth is one giant, ginormous, I'm hearing equal system, ecosystem. And as it moves, there are things that we are not used to as a human. We are not used to necessarily witnessing, experiencing. Anomalies will happen that seem unexplainable. Certain things that we see that we've never seen before, and some will try to wash them away, if you will, or delete them from view or to cover them up. For they do not wish for us necessarily to ask questions, to really do the research to see what is actually happening. Instead, the story that is being, I'm hearing it's a landfill. So the story that's being dumped on us, the landfill, is full of holes. And so we are looking through these, seeing the holes, and wondering what formed these holes. This is a play on words. This is a double meaning. And so there is much, I'm seeing like cheese, like Swiss cheese with all the holes in it. I'm hearing reference to Who Moved My Cheese. So isn't that a book? I've never read it, but something about that. Okay. So these holes that people are noticing that do not add up to completely fill the gaps of distortion are actually giving us an opportunity to feel into the fullness of more. We're being able to see through the distortion. And so let us move back into the earth and her proportions. For she is charging herself proportionately in order to support the system of life that is currently on and within her. Some of us think we are on earth and we visualize earth as a platform, but we are actually held within earth's arms. We are inside of the air that is encapsulated and held within her form. So in essence, we are all part of the womb of earth, and there are animals that are held within her pockets of water within her womb. We just happen to be held within the landscape of air, and we move around on top of the dirt and grass and mountains and rocks, and that is how we move inside of her. And there are other beings who actually are inside of those things that are inside of her, and so on and so forth. And there is much that we have yet to see that will begin to reveal itself currently. So this direction, or this radial lattice work that we are speaking of, is creating a movement pattern. And the movement pattern can be detected underneath the earth's skin, one might say. For inside of the earth is a sounding beacon that is harmonizing with another version of her. This is a play on words, but let us continue with this play. She is sending out a signal to, instead of releasing everything in entirety, I'm seeing like a supernova. Instead, she is seeking to interlace and join with her counterpart. And this is an energetic counterpart, but it can also be felt in a physical stimuli, as we are each stimulated to also join with our own counterparts in and of ourselves. So this will be confusing for some because it is interpreted in a myriad of ways. So we will just continue with this wordplay. As she continues to send out this honing beacon or this homing beacon, this energetic sound, it allows her to lay the groundwork that will then support the confluence of energies that will soon encapsulate her to support her expansion, therefore our expansion. I'm just seeing like this other version, just like a I just went poof, a bubble within a bubble. It's like I'm just seeing this bubble coming around and just holding Earth. This allows her to operate within a new structure of time and get out of the time warp, one might call it. And this allows us all to also get out of the time warp. And so she has made the choice, we might say, to move in this way for the generalized positive, or for humanity's benefit, basically. She's like, I'm going to do it this way. So if I do it this way, it's not going to create destruction in the way that in a cataclysmic event that maybe in other time periods would have happened. This creates more resources and economic opportunity that are part of a new structure. These resources have yet to be fully understood and are being discovered. And so as we discover more and more of these resources that were not here before, or were here but inaccessible to those who could not see them, we are now able to see more because there is more. And so we then shift our geometry and how the earth interacts with the field around it. And this creates a new pattern in which discretion is advised. So this is a play on words too. If I were writing this down, I could see kind of the play on words here, but let me just keep going. For as the earth is revised and as this discretion is kind of held, it's like a hope, like, I don't know, I got to play with this for a moment. Can't help myself. So this discretion that's advised, when I look up discretion, it actually comes from discern. So the ability to perceive and understand, so distinguish right from wrong, power to make distinction. I really like the part where it says perceive or recognize the difference or distinction between two or more things, distinguish with the eyes, see distinctly, behold. Oh, earlier in my previous video, I said behold. So this is a play on words, definitely. I have a feeling discretion itself is a play on words. But this also has to do with discretion is advised. That's a play on words, like AD, the eyes, like advised, like we're seeing it. Something about advised. And then if I were to play with this a bit, okay, so one of the other parts that I'm seeing here is they say that quantum states are discrete. The quantum, I'm on scienceblogs.com, principles and continuity, discretion, and the 7 essential elements of quantum physics. But basically, the quantum in quantum physics refers to the fact that everything in quantum physics comes in discrete amounts. A beam of light can only contain integer numbers of photons, 1, 2, 3, 137, but never 1.5 or 22.7. but it's just like this, oh boy. Okay, this is just kind of a conversation about this, but I'm looking at this. I go to where I'm drawn to and what's relevant for me. And in this particular blog, the author says, to put in physical terms, it's a little like the different levels you can choose for looking for an atom. If you're doing thermodynamics or fluid dynamics, an atom is a discrete and effectively indivisible particle with minimal structure. If you're doing atomic or molecular physics, an atom is a collection of electrons orbiting a nucleus, which is a very small, positively charged particle with minimal internal structure. If you're doing nuclear physics, the nucleus is a collection of protons and neutrons bound together by the strong force, and so on, into particle physics and string theory or M theory. Wow. At each step up from the theory of everything, you're making some simplification and obscuring some underlying structure, but the details you lose don't make any significant difference. So I'm kind of seeing this as, discernment, have discernment about, like, don't jump to conclusions is part of what I'm also hearing. Okay. Okay. For all that is happening inside of the Earth's structure is difficult to completely understand, for inside the Earth has yet to be fully understood. There are organisms inside of the Earth that excrete certain chemicals and nutrients that are toxic in some situations and very nutritious in others. These microorganisms are birthing a sort of chemical compound that is imperative in the structure and the organism of the earth herself. Just as humans carry certain bacteria and parasites that are part of the body, hitching a ride, one might say, we might venture to say that so too does the earth have these within her, and so do the Klingons around the earth that are coming into the I'm hearing the integer of the earthly coordinates and components also harness certain chemical attributes. And with this beautiful combination of life, more life is born. And so we would venture to recognize that there will be stories that are enhanced from these discoveries, and they may or may not hold a truth in all of it. Yet underlying all of it, the play on words like lying under the lies, is the truth that will eventually chip its way through into the worldview. And while this may take time, from one perspective, we would venture to say the time is already now. So the more we can step away from, this is a plain word, step away from not being objective and see with, we can use clarity of sight, even clairvoyance, the faster it will take place, the faster it will take place of the old, the faster it will stick, we might say. And as we allow ourselves to play in this new glue of efficiency and energy, this creates the ability for us to see with more clarity. And we begin to see that which has been underestimated, including the abundance of the earth. And so when we begin to see the earth as abundant, we begin to see us as abundant, and we begin to clear out the old entrapments that have been underlying stories to trap us into a particular dimensional existence that is void of the harmony and livelihood, play on words, of just, I'm seeing happiness, new discoveries, like the excitement rather than the fear. So we will end on this note and maybe come back to play with some of these words at a later time, for there is much that has been encapsulated within this message, and it can potentially take us into many different directions. And we would venture to say that one of the directions we are being called to focus on is under the crust of the upper crust of the earth. See through the upper crust and the layers, and see that which is held inside the, I'm seeing a bunch of different places, like ice, I'm seeing the Grand Canyon, I'm seeing some place that's got a forest, but underneath it there's another type of land that hasn't even been acknowledged, just all kinds of stuff. So, and on that note, it's just fun to play. I like to look at these places and spaces with my own sight to see, because it gives me a sense of vastness of us, of humanity, of the earth. It's like we are told that we're too big and we're too populated, and we're destroying earth. And from another perspective, from one perspective, that might be true if we just continue to trash the earth. Of course, that's going to have a negative impact on our growth cycle and her growth cycle. But simultaneously, if all of us shift our frequency in such a way that we're now supporting each other and supporting earth and working together to find processes that assist us with our process of expansion, we aren't, all those things that we think we need are going to fall by the wayside, is what I'm hearing. Because we'll be able to see a much bigger side. It's like being able to see the dark side of the moon, right? Like, what's on the dark side of the moon, which I'm just using that as an example. All of a sudden we see, wow, we didn't know that was there. That changes the whole game. So, in love and light, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and playing. Namaste.